Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to Red Sox Now, coffee fueled. We got to get a coffee sponsor. Wouldn't that be nice? I'm Mike. Make sure to, if you want to subscribe to my personal channel, that's me. You guys and gals know that. Responding to you on Mike Antonellis Media. I know a few people asked me about joining the Discord, and I cannot leave the link. I got to talk to Fan Arch here about links are getting removed. So if you want to email me, I can send you the link, antonellis.michael@gmail.com, and all of my socials are at the Radio Mike on X. I see a lot of you have been starting to follow me, but would love to get you in the Discord. And then we have, this cool little Red Sox MLB chat. And it would be nice to flood that with all of you. 2,300 subscribers and going up. Over 2,000 views yesterday. Fantastic. This was pretty cool. I was watching all of this Tatsuya Imai, the Japanese hot free agent, that he was on a Japanese TV show, and Daisuke Matsuzaka was on it, and this guy does not want to pitch for the Dodgers, and I really like this. It makes sense, right? Not every American wants to play with the best American player. A lot do. I like this quote. Every season I have played with the goal of winning the league championship in the Japan Series, and that ambition will not change. But he's ranked the number 11 free agent according to Mark Feinsand on MLB.com. I like his pitch mix. He throws hard. He sits 95, but he can get it up to 99. Fastball, slider, change, splitter, and a sinker. All these Japanese pitchers have that splitter. I like those kind of guys. I would love the Red Sox to be in on this, and he does not want to be a Dodger. He's in his mid-20s. So these reports from John Morosi has, of course, the Mets, the Giants, and the Red Sox, but not the Dodgers. I'm sure the Yankees will be in this, but, this just costs you money. And if you feel that, and we talked about this yesterday with 2 and 3 starters, I could care less if this is an arm, and I trust the Red Sox in this, and they've been pretty good at getting players over here, especially pitchers. Andrew Bailey's done a good job with the tweaks that they make. If this is a pitcher they like. They like guys that are in the zone, that throw hard as the basis, as do, I think, most organizations. But I think, obviously some of those guys can have command issues. This is not a guy with command issues, like a Jordan Hicks, for instance. Hard thrower, thought they could fix it. And Andrew Bailey was with him before, and that did not work out last year. 27 years old. Like the pitch mix. I like the fact that he wants to pitch against the Dodgers. So I like that makeup, and I think that's important. But again, it is a young guy that you'd be putting in your rotation. So you have to ask yourself some questions here. I think the Red Sox I trust them on this, on their scouting. This is a team that I think last year, if they had signed somebody like Imai, I wouldn't care it one bit. I'd be like, absolutely, you're coming off wasn't a great feeling. All the arms you could have. I'm not against it this year. My only warning signs would be the unknown. Do we want to bring in unknown in here? I don't care what all the scouting as well, because that doesn't mean, all these Japanese players are written up like they're Hall of Famers. And I get it. They should be, that's just, it's how it works. So the risk for me, and again, I'm not against it, and I trust the Red Sox on this. If this happens, then they feel, obviously, he can be a big part of their rotation. If they don't do it, it's because where they are situationally as an organization. You're trying to go to that next level. 89, 90 win team, could have had more wins without the injuries. You got in the playoffs, you're looking at World Series. So when you weigh these options of bringing in a starting pitcher, I like the known commodity, of course. I think we all do. Could there be more upside with Imai? Yeah. And I like a lot. I watched a lot of his, that's what I like to do. The way he hides the ball well, he's deceptive. There's a lot to like where he could come in and yes, he has the stuff, he has the repertoire and the mix to potentially be an upper rotation guy. But I don't want it to be where, if it's a project. I wasn't high on Daisuke. I thought Daisuke was way overly talked about just because I saw him in spring training and I didn't see what the scouting reports to me did not align at all. It was not as dominant as we thought. And there was a lot going on with him. Makeup. I love Daisuke, but I thought the makeup was a little, and we could have this conversation another episode, but quickly, I thought maybe both sides with all of that were he wanted to throw more. The Red Sox with Theo would not adjust to what he wanted. He would not adjust to what they wanted. That was not a great start, but I think Daisuke learned, and he was, he was pretty good for a couple years there, but again, not what I think we thought because of all the pop and circumstance that came with that. That was you remember that. And Imai's not in the same category. The Daisuke thing was crazy. Our trainer at the time in Portland, Masai Takahashi. Masai and I are pretty good friends. He was our trainer. And I remember him telling me he was leaving us. We were in the playoffs. He's like, I'm leaving to go help the negotiations with the Japanese pitcher which was Daisuke. I'm like, oh, crazy. And I didn't really think much of it. And then it was because he was built as this huge, huge superstar. And I think that's maybe where we're let down. This is not the same situation. But if the Red Sox feel that this could be a lot of work from what they see, and that's what they're going to go on, from what they've scouted, and I'm sure they had people over there all year. If they think maybe he could be good in a couple of years, I don't think it's worth it. If they do, hey, this guy immediately would slot in our rotation. Absolutely. My point is you just don't do these things just to do them or to take them away from somebody. It has to make sense of where this club is. Because if you do this, odds are that you're not going to trade for Joe Ryan probably or sign a free agent pitcher because it will cost you. The negotiation window begins Wednesday at 8 and ends January 2nd. And that posting fee you don't get back. I mean, it's a big investment. That was kind of breaking news. John Heyman, man, boy, link after link after link. I'm tired of these because I think some of them are foolish. And I'm not bringing this up to poke fun at John. I'm bringing this up because I get a lot of questions about some of these things that they post up. I already got some last night. I wouldn't have brought this up, but I got 2 DMs on my X with this article about Edwin Diaz and that the Red Sox are linked to him. And I know that super bullpen has been a buzzword this offseason, but I don't think for I don't think it involves another closer. I can't see how this doesn't happen. You don't usually bring in Chapman is a veteran who you just gave a lot of money to, whether it's right or wrong. And I know a lot of you are going to say you should do what's best for the team, and I agree with that. But it's just kind of not what you do in baseball. The two closers never works. I don't think Edwin Diaz is going to come over here and be okay being a setup guy. I know he got that ridiculous contract before, which was a grossly overpay. But it's the Mets. The Mets owner is a fan. I mean, that's what he pays. I don't think Steve Cohen's a great baseball guy. He's just got a lot of money, and he makes a lot of emotional decisions. And when you spend $700 million on one player and you lose to the Marlins on the last day and win 83 games, I think Mets fans have every right to question, and that's my argument against spending. I'm not against spending, but it's not 100% foolproof, and it can crash, which you saw. And as great as the Dodgers season was, and they won the World Series, they won 89 games in the regular season. Now, I think part of that was that they managed a lot of players. My point is there's no guarantees. I thought his deal was, they gave him a lot. Over $20 million to be a closer. And was there any loyalty there when he had a chance to opt out? Of course not. He was injured, didn't pitch all of 23. He was good last year. Wasn't great in 24, but no loyalty. It's not how the game works. But he'd be a lot of money, and that's the issue with all of this. You're going to pay him more than Chapman to be a setup guy. I guess you could say, well, would he care? Would Diaz care? I mean, you're getting Chapman at almost half the salary, and there's not even a comparison of who I would take over. I'd take Chapman at 38, 37 right now over Diaz, who makes over, he made 21 last year. Value. It doesn't mean it's cheap. It just means that you could end up spending 40 or 50 more for a guy that's not going to bring you much more. But I just don't see how, especially that he opted out. Okay, I don't think Edwin Diaz opted out to be a setup man in Boston. I could be wrong, but this just smells Yankees all over it. And again, I will stick with my opt-outs with players. I don't think, and I think a lot of you know this, but most players are not blindly opting out. Like, I hope many of you believe that. They kind of know what's going on. This is not like, oh, I'm going to opt out and just gamble. No, they have some hints. I've continually, in my years of being in the Red Sox system as a broadcaster in 2005, and most of the prospects every year we talked about was position players, but the foundation is built right what it should be. And it gets more exciting every day. Jonathan Mayo, who I really like, know him personally, has a great article on MLB.com about that next wave. And what I like about this is we just keep having waves here. And I know that there's a risk with prospects. I know that they won't all work out. I agree with that. But we have never had this many pitching prospects being talked about in my lifetime. Not just as a broadcaster. I thought about this last night. And maybe I can go back to the 80s. The Red Sox had Clemens. That was a big name. Bruce Hurst. But we're talking about guys that are top of the rotation guys. This, And I had mentioned this last week on what I thought the plans would be for Peyton Tolle, and Alex Spear said it yesterday, and it's not a surprise. He will not be a reliever. He shouldn't be. And a lot of people who have criticized Peyton Tolle, please remember, it was his first year pitching professionally. Most of those guys are not in the big leagues. Chase Burns didn't look good at times last year. Remember his start at Fenway? That was his first year. Peyton Tolle has potential to be Crochet. Easily. I know that sounds over the top. I don't care. Fastballs like that don't grow on trees. He was almost able, but the way he pitched in the big leagues without really having a lot of stuff is incredibly hard. Was it rough a little bit? Certainly. But there were some spots in that start against the Pirates, and there were flashes with Tolle that you're like, wow, first year. If you looked at some first-year pitchers, I haven't seen many. When I was in Double-A, we hardly ever got a guy in his first year. They still went through Lowell, Greenville, Salem. Hardly ever. Craig Hansen, reliever, completely different. But you saw what that looks like and what that potentially could be. That's not far away. And I have all the confidence they'll get him up to speed. And the fact that Connolly early came along and he looked more seasoned and a guy that has barely pitched. But then Mayo's article is just, there's more with Witherspoon. 4+ pitches. He is, he says, and I think Jonathan has a good intel with the Red Sox player development. All odds are that he's going to start at Double-A. First year, Double-A. I mean, you have a chance here to have 3 homegrown starters. I mean, early to me is in the rotation. I don't think that's a question. You have a couple more potentially. But when it's all said and done with all of these guys that you have, if just 2 hit and you end up putting Witherspoon and Phillips and Mullins and on, Brandon Clark, if these guys all become relievers, so be it. It is hard. But now you have more opportunities. I've never seen this many arms. And again, it's barely talked about. It's Alonso. It's power. We need power. It's all I hear on social media. It's amazing how there's not more. And a lot of it's because you can't see it yet. But I just don't think, and I'm gonna continue to pound this on the show, I don't think some of you realize what they've got now. This organization has been able to win without any of this, which is hard to do. A lot of outside help, a lot of trades. That's how you crash, because you're giving up a lot of equity to get starters. Because these guys on the open market, the value is through the roof. Like a Connolly early, for instance. He already could be valued at $15 to $20 million as a 4/5 starter. Does he not look like he could be a 4th or 5th starter? And he's going to get better. Yes. But then all these other guys that are waiting, and then Luis Perales, David Sandlin, these guys throw over 100. You've got relievers coming. So this makes me more excited, way more excited than talking about a potential first baseman. That you can get. That you can buy. You can't buy stuff. You can't buy guys like Peyton Tolle. You can try to trade for him, what you did with Crochet and you did with Sale. I'm just talking about percentage of the hardest to find in baseball, and it's what teams have been running circles around you doing. And that's where I'll always go back to a lot of organizational failures with the Red Sox. It's identifying and scouting better arms. And now they have somebody in here who was a pitcher who did wonders with the Cubs, who Theo trusts. Breslow, ex-player. Cora, ex-player. They know what's important. And it started with Heim. I think Heim did a great job with this, and it's continued and segued into what I've always wanted the organization to be more strongly about. Take as many, and we'll see if any of those are turned away into something else. Monday's comments are presented by. Oh, we don't have a sponsor. We should. We got to get the mailbox sponsored. Right? I keep all the profits. Quentin Gauthier. Hey, Mike. Dylan Cease. I guess I didn't have to say, hey, Mike. Do you think he'd accept a short-term 1 to 2 year deal at $42 million per year like Scherzer and Verlander took a few years back with the Mets? Would be a perfect bridge to see if Tolley or Early can assume the role or two, and you don't have to trade either. For me, Early's in the rotation. I don't think I've seen enough as a 4 or 5. So for me, he's in. It would be taking the spot of Giolito. Love the Donovan idea and wouldn't hesitate to start with a package with Meyer to bring in a surer thing. I don't know if I have no idea. Because of the work stoppage, potentially. So again, it goes back to this: how much negotiating power does Dylan Cease have? So I know he didn't have a great year statistically last year. He's 29. He's still got really good stuff. I watched 4 or 5 of his outings on MLB.com on the replay, and when I watched him, I was like, how is this guy have the ERA he has? Durable. 5 straight years he's not missed a start. It was pretty good in 22. I'd be all over this. Think about this. He would take the spot of Giolito. Is he better? No doubt. No doubt. I mean, he made $13 million last year. I don't know if I'd give him 42 for 1 year. I don't think he's, he's not Scherzer or Verlander. I might do less. I mean, if you give him 1 year, 25, right? I mean, he made $13 million last year. Good comment, though. At 78 Pettibone, love the show as always. Thank you. Originally from North Jersey, but I live in Wyoming. Nimmo's stomping grounds now. I do think Boris clients don't tend to sign early because he's trying to get that bidding war to grow as much as possible. Absolutely. That's his job. I do think Alonso and Bregman do have a specific market as Boris clients. They want the big money teams, but I also think the big money teams know the Boris game and don't play it until they have to, which is later in free agency, unless it's a unique guy or the player is a standout in free agency that year. Yeah, I mean, that's why, I'm not very emotional about any of this. Bregman and Alonso hired Boris to do this. Boris gets a lot of crap. Players hire him for this. Boris deals with big markets. That's really what he does. I mean, he would deal with the Pirates. It's just all about getting the most money. That's just how it is, and I don't have any issues with any of that. I think we tend to be too emotional about, it's great situation, and I have gotten like that too with Bregman. But for me, it's always going off what I see. Bregman's smile ear to ear, he could not hold back his smile when he at his press conference. I had not seen a player act like that. He was not business. He was emotional. I just read off that he was originally drafted by the Red Sox. He talked about how he always wanted to play here. He did something with Sam Adams. Now you could say, does that all matter? Maybe not, but if it would be weird for me for a guy to act like that and just bolt after 1 year. To show no emotion. He showed a lot of emotion. He was very invested. But I'm not in the camp of like how much money is enough money. It's not about like, it's easy for people who don't have money to say that. And I'm not one that will ever touch the kind of salaries those guys have. But it's a business. It's what any entertainer profession does. They're going to take the highest bidder, and there is no loyalty. I wouldn't be that way either. Most of you wouldn't either if you were in that situation. Many of you talk a big game. Oh, I would never do that. Yes, you would. You would. You can't take less money. The union won't let you do that. And Boris is that's what they do. Many of us complain about we should be making more money at our jobs. Now, if we're talking about like turning down $500 million to take $550, I get that. But that's just what you have to understand that. Like that I get it's a game and all that, but there is still a business end of it that's not going to go away. And I understand the emotional part. You get tied in with your players. Yeah, but you have to accept that it's different. It's different. When I hear about back in the day, completely different. Before the union, guys worked in the offseason. You didn't have a lot of chances to go play on other teams. Those guys played in this era, they'd be the same way. So as much as, we goof on Boris, and I do it, he's very good at his job. He really is. I've talked to a lot of players that have him. He's actually really good to them also in how he treats them too. Anthony Renato, if you remember Anthony, I used to talk to him a lot about it, and he was honest with me. He said the process of signing out of LSU was horrible with the negotiations with the Red Sox. Boris, told him to stay out of it, and they really pushed at a level he thought was hurtful to him, and it wasn't. In the end, he got a lot of money, and then he talked about how all of his clients, that Boris sends them a lot of things in the offseason, like steaks and like bonus money and like all kinds of things, like the way he takes care of his clients. Now he has the money, but you have to just accept that that's not changing. At Ken-PS7My, really need a Gabe Kapler or Alex Cora utility guy for depth and better defense. Yeah, I think Nate Eaton is absolutely that guy. I thought Nate Eaton did unbelievable things last year. That's a guy that J.P. Ricciardi has told me he does not understand why he's not on someone's 25-man roster. He said it all year. And he told us when he goes up to Boston, he is going to show why he's a good player, and JP nailed it. Elite arm, can play every single position on the diamond. Elite speed, elite range. He's got a little pop. As a utility guy, he brings way more to the table than Rob Repsnyder, and it kills me saying this. I love Rob. Rob murders lefties, but Nate Eaton's better. He's a better, and he should be the utility guy. I don't think Hamilton or Grissom will have a chance. I think it'll be Sogard and Nate Eaton. I also hope, this is going to sound weird, because I don't know if Sogard, because he doesn't have that elite speed, I hope the Red Sox find a team to trade him, because I think he could play every day for somebody like the White Sox or Pirates or Marlins and put up good numbers. That's going to wrap it up for Tuesday. We went a half hour. All thanks to you. As always, Radio Mike is the handles on social. Leave a comment. We'll get to it all day. Thanks for watching Red Sox Now, presented by FanArch. And as I say every day, as always, go Sox.